And without further ado, let's get this first game underway. Spawning down here in the bottom right position of the map. Give it up for the Shopify Rebellions, BYUN. And his opponent up here in the top right of this 4-player map, Jacaranda. He is for Dragon Phoenix Gaming, Rogue. And already we have that first Overlord going in the wrong direction. So that is going to deny or delay the scout for just a small period of time here. On BYUN's side of things, he's going to take advantage of that. He actually is going to go CC first here. Something that, while the map is 4-player, you can necessarily get away with quite easily. It does kind of hurt him a little bit if Rogue recognizes this and decides to go for kind of the same thing, going for that 3-hatch, or heck, even just getting that spawning pool up very, very early and just pile driving you in with a big Link Bane attack early on. That is one way that you can really just damage your opponent, who is going very greedy here. Now behind this, we do have the double racks also being dropped. Still no gas, so this tells me that it's going to be a 3 racks here from BYUN. But the biggest problem with that right now, he doesn't see anything. No Reapers, no SCVs out on the map. He is dead set in his strategy right now, and one of the big things about 3 racks is you do need to kind of keep all the SCVs at home for that little bit of extra mineral income. But that might hurt him a little bit if he decides to go for an attack in the wrong direction. Rogue, though, pretty much just playing it relatively standard here. It looks like he does get confirmation that his opponent is here. And what I really like about this Overlord movement is that he sees the CC and then instantly just drives it away to the point where BYUN wouldn't have spotted it with the building CC. Meaning that BYUN, once again, he just has no idea where Rogue is. Now, I gotta admit, it has been a while since we have seen a 4-base map in the map pool here. This is from the Team Liquid map contest number 5. Or 15, rather. A few more than 5. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know this is a controversial subject, but I think it would be kind of cool to see these kind of larger maps get back into pool. So that's why I'm excited to see how Jacaranda does decide to play out. Because it can be quite fun to play on a 4-player map. It can be a little bit frustrating if your builds don't really match up. But to get to that late stage of gameplay that we don't really see a ton of, and by that I mean a lot of the time, especially in BYUN games, we do see it kind of just stick into the mid-game, and then even if it is late game, it's just kind of that slow death of either the Terran or the Zerg, with neither side really tapping out. It's just really fun to see if they can get up to that stage with both sides on equal economies, both sides on equal bases, and just kind of mine out the map a little bit. But going back to what's going on in this one right now, the Zergling does get final confirmation here. He sees a couple of Marines, but not really too much to raise alarm bells just yet. And BYUN, still no information as to where his opponent is. He's just now sending a Marine out to kind of find that hidden Ling. He will be able to find it, but since he's on move command, there we go. A little bit of a skirmish right there. And the big question is, does that tell BYUN where Rogue is? Because it might seem like the smallest thing in the world, but if you see the Ling trying to go home to the top of the map, then you know for a fact that's where your opponent is. But here we go. BYUN does send the first bunch of Marines out here. On the other side of things, we do have a ton of Lings being built and the Baneley nest going down. So if BYUN does decide to move out, I don't think he's going to get too much done. But We will have to see. This is BYUN we are talking about here. Alright, here we go. BYUN's out on the map. He has scouted a little bit here. Trying to see where his opponent is, and there we go. That's his first confirmation that his opponent is very close by. But honestly, Rogue is on the warpath right now. We have not seen a single drone in the longest amount of time. He has cut workers on 43. So he is definitely looking to end this game very, very quickly versus BYUN. The medevacs are coming in for support. That's going to make it a little bit easier for him. Still no banelings out, but that is only a matter of time. He is waiting on that speed to get a little bit closer. Does get prepared for the full surround. The Queen's in the front, though. One of them will go down very, very quickly, but here comes the wraparound. There is just not enough medevacs, but there's also not enough banelings. So BYUN will still be able to get out of there with one medevac full of units, but that was still a very clean fight there from Rogue. So from here, Rogue does restart that drone economy here. But he still has a very scary army. Small little bit of a drop, in danger of going down. That medevac almost full. So Rogue just doing a really good job of shutting this down. BYUN still looking for some damage. Won't really be able to find it with this paltry force. Biggest problem is he still doesn't have his third base up either. So Rogue is going to have a base up on him for just a little bit of time. Now, the biggest thing for BYUN right now is he does kind of need to keep this presence out on the map just to make sure that the Lings and Banes are at home. He can't really afford for Rogue to kind of make his way over to his own base. So that's kind of why where we see him right now, just kind of clearing up some of that creep, showing the threat, but not really wanting to full-on engage just yet. He's got to build up a little bit before he does so. Yeah, you can see that as soon as he sees the Lings are in position, he just picks up and gets on out of there. The Lings as well trying to keep this from going on. Here we go. Instant liftoff once again, still not losing anything. And back at home, he is starting to get a pretty good handle on his economy. Even going very aggressive with this third base. Oh my goodness. Like, that is almost right on Rogue's doorstep, so he's going to have to fight very hard to defend that. Especially with how far away it is from the natural. Vex still kind of just flying around. He's looking for the positions. He wants to find a good little siege up point, but he just can't find it right now. As a small little Ling run by is going to do a little bit of damage. Might get the siege tank, in fact, will. And 2 workers going down, so... yeah, not the most damage, but that was a very clean pick-off. Very nice pick-off from Rogue. And this as well, he's got the muta count starting on up. He's got 6 on the way. And with the economy he's built up right now, 5, excuse me, I'm trying to count here, but I can't seem to count. About 7 geysers are operational, so he's just going to be able to pump out a ton of mutas to deal with this drop. And Rogue is all over this. Up 40 supply right now. The Liberator gets a little bit of damage before going down, but you can't really afford to throw away units like that at this point. So we have another little drop coming out here. But at this point, I think BYUN kind of just needs to fight a bigger fight with his entire army rather than try and rely on these kind of smaller drop plays. Because at this point, Rogue is just going to be pumping out units. He is done building up his economy for right now. He might add on a couple of drones, but that's not really what he cares about. He just cares about getting out tons of units, which will just make it difficult for small armies to necessarily engage. BYUN is setting himself up as the rock wall will go down up here. That is a lot of banelings. How many are on the field? 36. At the meantime here, still have the mutas hanging on out. Here we go. The wall is down. The banelings trying to force their way through. They will be able to make it in, but they are taking very heavy casualties. Still, there is more than enough to them to clean out this mineral line. And now BYUN, a little bit indecisive, will lose the line, and he won't even have any attack path to show for it. Looks like he actually lost the medevacs here. Actually, no, there they are. But after taking that amount of damage, he's only on 45 workers, so he has to make something happen right here, right now. You see a big move out. The banelings getting a good connection there at the end. BYUN not really splitting, relying on the focus fire, which is pretty darn good. But back at home, the meters are just raining hellfire on his natural base. He kind of recognizes that he does need to bring those home. The baneling nest under fire, but that was a very expensive pickoff there for BYUN. And his supply is dwindling, as we do see the medevacs going for that hot pickup, trying to keep this attack alive. We'll get a couple of good shots off on the Banes, but he has nothing behind this. Rogue up 50 supply in total. And he might lose this base, but I don't think that's going to be the really key thing for BYUN here. He needs to get a lot more, as he's starting to get on top of the drone line, but there are still plenty in reserve. The mutas kind of just hanging out in reserve, waiting to go, as that baneling nest was remade. So BYUN kind of trapped between a rock and a hard place. Sends a couple of those medevacs home to support the army, as it is getting very weak on the home front there. The mules starting to go down. And yeah, at this point, you just can't really fight these mutas with how little units he has. They currently do have +1 attack. And here we go. Rogue just gonna dive right on top of this. Starting to split off the creep is BYUN, so he will be able to keep these units alive for now, but now the mutas just gonna come in and fight this straight up. Looks like the reinforcements are gonna come in here as BYUN recognizes the situation he's in again and again. Now, this is still a relatively scary army, and Rogue starting to bleed out a little bit here. Currently 51 to 67 army supply. So if BYUN can kind of shut down this mutaball a little bit more, he might be able to make his way back into it. In terms of mules back at home, he doesn't really have that many available to him. But the siege tanks doing a really good job of zoning out the Banes and Lings. So another base will go down. The splits are pretty good, so the baneling count is dead. Now BYUN has to decide what he's going for. Does he go for the tech in the main base, or does he try and get rid of the rest of the economy on the third? Looks like the answer is going straight for the main base. And yeah, getting that lair would be pretty nice. Getting rid of the mutas would be pretty nice. Getting rid of all these Banes, absolutely beautiful. But just keep an eye on this army. It is getting very low on health. Ooh, getting the baneling nest though. Oh, he got the spawning pool as well. So for the meantime, there's not going to be too much left, but BYUN entire army up here will get decimated. And taking a look at the unit count, he's got 17 Marines to try and make something else happen. It has been a good fight, but I think he's a little bit out of steam now, as Rogue still just hovering around 100 supply, and BYUN just doesn't have the economy to remake that army. Last on the medevacs does fall right there as well. As I lose connection to BattleNet for some reason, that is okay. Now the mutas are going to be making their way back in. And they got to be careful not to fight the Marines, because the quickest way to lose would be to lose all these Mutalisks here. Taking a look at the unit's loss count, so much has gone down. And he does bleed out quite a few of these mutas, but he does find a base that is not safe. And yeah, he's fighting very valiantly here. I just don't see how he can do it. You know, he gets another muta right there, but that's 11 more banelings on the way. I hate to call it early because there's been crazier things. But once you go behind Rogue, you know, he's never going to let you pass him ever again. Still has 3 bases to his name, of 4th, not mining, but still in support, and GG is called. In the bottom right position of Treadmill. Give it up for BYUN. And his opponent over here in the bottom left position of the map. Give it up for Rogue. Now, Treadmill, a little bit similar to Blackburn from the current map pool. The only big difference is, you know, up here we don't see that gold-based expansion. The top of the map is still very wide open. So that's something to keep in mind here. But this time, there's not going to be any room for those little sneaky tricks, because you do know where your opponent spawns down here. Now, you do have this base, which might be a little bit interesting to take early on. You're kind of hoping that he doesn't send an Overlord over here if you decide to float over. But it's not as secure as it would be with a rock wall. Instead, it is just a couple of minerals away from getting crushed. So definitely a risk you have to weigh the pros and cons of. Rogue, to his credit, I think he's just going to play this series very straight up. You know, he's not going to try and plan anything around the map. He's just going to be looking for those quick, clean kills like we saw in game number 1, which, I mean, it's Rogue. You know, he can get those all day versus the best players on Earth and not even break a sweat. Now BYUN is playing it more standard right now. The factory has calmed down. Just getting that early Marine for a little bit of extra defense as he sends the Reaper across, looking for a little bit of poking. We'll find the Lings off the creep almost, but Rogue doing a good job of keeping those alive. Focus fires 1 down, though. 2nd has to be careful not to fall. Queen's still not out just yet. They are just ever so slightly delayed. But the Lings are going to be enough to kind of force this back for the moment, as that Reaper needs to regenerate its health. Now, I'm liking this. This is something that's been very prevalent if you've seen players like Clem play Innovation versus Zerg. Just going for that 3rd CC so that it comes out roughly equal to your opponent's 3rd hatchery. What that allows you to do is it allows you to get up to kind of that Terran war machine economy on 3 bases. And if we all know BYUN, He is one of those players who loves to just kind of macro up and then kill you with overwhelming amounts of units. As this Reaper kind of just dancing around, having a little bit of fun at these Queens' expense. Hanging out here on the high ground. Rogue really wants to get the kill, but has to be careful not to go too far off that creep. So everything else is pretty standard right now. We do have the tech lab, so we'll have to keep an eye out if he does decide to go for Banshees or just a faster stim. As Queens get one little pot shot. The Hellions a little bit too quick for him to get the kill. And yeah, there you go. It's going to be a fast stim timing, so basically he does want to keep these Hellions alive, as we see the Pult Viking going to get the Overlords. But yeah, he wants to keep these Hellions alive so that once he hits with +1 attack, +1 armor, which we should be seeing start relatively soon as he gets those NG bays up, then they're going to really help out in the offense. Just really going to add a little bit of extra firepower, soak up some of those Baneling hits, and just look to kind of crush through with one fell swoop. Now, Rogue, he's kind of just droning up. He's feeling very, very safe, knowing that those Hellions aren't just going to dive on in, as he does have units in all of these good positions. So he's not going to worry too much, but as that layer goes up, just dropping the Baneling Nest, play it even safer. And I'm kind of curious to see whether he does decide to go for Hydra Lurker, or he does stick with the Miras on this map with a lot of open airspace. Getting another Overlord would be pretty nice, but there is enough transfuse energy here that Viking has to get on out. Looks like Rogue will be going for the greedy 4th base. We'll go straight for that gold. And the Queens will be able to push these Hellions away. Again, he doesn't want to lose them. He's got +1 attack on the way. There's the armory. And so every little bit of hit points helps out. BYUN once again taking the aggressive 3rd base, as he expands very close to his opponent. I don't think that's necessarily going to hurt him in this instance, but once again, it is Spire Tech. So he's got to be very careful about where he positions, because that is a very long distance for the Marines to kind of dive into in order to defend. Gets the Overlord, which is pretty nice. The Widowmines burrowing has a little bit of a retreat path, covering his rear, as the Marines are just going to dive on in. Gets a couple of creep tumors, but nothing too crazy just yet. A little bit crazier. But here we go. The Lings are going to try and get on top of this. Hot pickup will save a lot of those Marines from the friendly fire damage, but these Widowmines aren't spotted, so they are still going to add a lot to this attack. The Miras are joining in as well. They're going to be looking to help out. But here we go. The Hellbats have morphed on in, looking for the wraparound. He might just be going for a big counterattack here to catch the reinforcements. Already a good free split here, but Rogue does find his way into the 3rd base. A little bit undefended, so the reinforcements will have to stick around and defend. The missile turret will fall. Unfortunately for Rogue, it will cost him his gold expansion. Now, this is kind of the thing I was mentioning. You see how far these Marines have to go to defend these different locations. So he will have to split them up, already losing 7 workers to this attack. But he is still pushing the front, As these queens getting a little bit too far forward for comfort. And now the muta's being shooed away. That's actually going to prompt BYUN to keep the rest of his units on the way. And he wants to keep this attack going. He does not want to stop, but Rogue, the longer this attack goes on for BYUN, the worse it's going to get for him. Since, as you can kind of see here, taking a look at the units lost cab and the army supply, BYUN is ahead, and that's where he loves to sit. Just force the units, keep his opponent from teching up, from getting those crucial upgrades, and just kind of go from there. Speaking of that, Rogue has nothing right now. He is just trying to fight against 1-1 Marines with no upgrades of his own. Huge friendly fire damage there. Gonna slow down this attack a little bit. But at the end of the day, BYUN's still up over 30 army supply. Catch the army down here. Not that many banelings available to him. But from here, Rogue, again, he just needs to keep some of this army back. Keep BYUN's attention away. A little bit supply block there on 200. And, yeah, just got to be very careful here. Big Widowmine connection. Gonna get a couple of those lings. The second one as well, but a little bit of friendly fire damage. So BYUN a little bit indecisive here. Decides to go back and defend. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite him, as Rogue does get 13 workers. Yeah, you can kind of see BYUN trying to decide whether he does want to go home or just go for the attack. I think from here, you do want to keep that aggression going, because otherwise your opponent is going to start to just kind of catch up in terms of that supply, and he will be able to steamroll you quite heavily. Finding a good position here. The pre-split is pretty good. Wasting a lot of Banes on top of those Hellbats, but the second wave from the right does get a very good connection here, but is it enough? Now that the mutas are home, it looks to be. Problem is the second wave of this army is already ready to go. Unfortunately, though, they do not have any medevacs with them, so this is very, very dangerous here. BYUN does not have enough to heal up until he links up with the rest of them. And all Rogue has to do is kind of just keep him back for a little bit longer. Good Widowmine connection, gets another muta. If he can keep these mutas from getting to critical mass, then it's going to be great for him. He's still ahead in terms of that army supply, a position he has never left. He finds the 5th. The split is good. And he will be able to get a kill on this base. Yeah, any day now, guys. You can just kind of help out. Mutas do find BYUN's own 4th base. The Marines will be enough to kind of shoo this away for the meantime. But again, you know, they're finding little bits of damage here and there, and that is fantastic for Rogue. Really just buying him the time he needs to get up to that infestation pit and start going for Hive. And unfortunately, BYUN is forgetting something very important. He does not have +3 armor on these units. So he's going to fall a little bit behind there as, oh my goodness, 20 workers going down. BYUN, recognizing the situation, does decide to go for the main base, but that is going to cost him the rest of his army. So after what was a very strong start for our Red Terran player, it's all kind of falling apart right now. As these mutas going to be able to kind of just get away after getting a couple of quick medevac snipes. The army having to pick up and get away from here. And Rogue up 50 supply in total. Which, funnily enough, is not in the army. They're actually almost completely equal in that regard. He does find a nice position over here, fighting from the acceleration zone. That is actually pretty cool to see. Utilizing the map to the best of his ability. But here we go. The Muta's going to find their way in. A hot pickup to save some of those Marines. But will he be able to get the base for this entire effort? He's got to get a snipe there to make it all worth it. Mule's kind of keeping him afloat if we kind of take a look at that income advantage. There we go. Very heavily in Rogue's favor, but you can kind of see where the mules are dropped. It's kind of helping him out a bit. They're trying to fight Marines straight up, and they do have the numbers to do so. The SCV is falling on all fronts as the Lings crushing through the third. The Mutas destroying the fourth. And once again, BYUN is kind of just in this do-or-die effort situation now. He doesn't have a lot of healing available to him. These medevacs are starting to run dry. But at this point, he's got to go. Like, there's just no two ifs, ands, or buts about him. If Rogue is able to get up to Hive Tech, he does have the Hive, but he's not on the tech part, then he's just dead. Even more so than he might be already, but here we go. The Baneling getting right on top of this army, some decent connections. And as this army starts to fall beyond below 100 supply, picks up, gets out of there. The Widowmine's unfortunately not going to be able to stem the bleeding. That might have helped out a little bit of an X move right there. And here we go, the last big fight. The splits are pretty good, but there's just too many Banelings. The little bits of Marines left should be able to get cleaned up by the Mutalisks. And I think from here, BYUN might just tap out. There you have it. Let's take a look at this map here. Looks like the third triangle position. It's a little bit far from the natural for a ground army, but you do have these kind of defensive spots up here where you can kind of defend from the high ground. If you just drop a couple of tanks up there, you should be okay as the Terran player against any sort of ground attack. But if Rogue does decide to go Mutas again, that might be a little bit of a issue here. Because like I was saying, on maps with kind of these longer distances to the third base, it can be a little bit difficult for those bunch of Marines to kind of be in multiple locations at once, which obviously pretty bad. I try not to show any bias here, obviously, but yeah, that's just one thing to keep an eye out here. I think Rogue is kind of just doing a really good job of kind of exposing that fact of kind of being where his opponent is not with his army. The Muta's finding a lot of good damage overall. And as we do see this time, BYUN just trying to play it a little bit safer. We'll see that it is a hatch first. And did he skip the Reaper? It looks like he did this time. Gonna go instead straight for the reactor. So keeping himself a little bit open to early game offense. Gonna get those Hellions out nice and quick though. I think my biggest question right now is, does this mean we're gonna be seeing some sort of Hellbat timing? With the faster Hellions, with the racks down here, you could drop a tech lab, start some Banshees, and just be aggressive that way with an attack. I think that would be a pretty good idea for some early game aggression. We kind of saw that once BYUN is kind of hitting that mid-game stride, as long as he does a little bit of damage early on, he can kind of hold his own for a bit. But Rogue's still showing that he has his number. Hey, this is an old school one. It's going to be actually Hellion Liberator. I do like this. Rogue is going to clean up these rock walls, just making sure in the event of a siege tank push, it's not going to be hurting too bad. But we do see kind of playing it a lot safer as well, getting that spine crawler down. I guess it kind of makes sense because he hasn't really built a lot of offensive units. He does cancel it, however. Going to rely on the queens instead. The Hellions, one of them did go down. So a nice little push away from Rogue. Yeah. Almost worth it in terms of minerals lost. But there you go. We do have the armory started here. So these Hellions getting ready for morphing time. As we do have the medevac, a couple of Marines. Very fast stim pack behind this just to make sure that he can keep the aggression going after this push. Now, Rogue has seen the Liberator too. I'm starting to wonder if this might have been a misclick. And the reason I say that is because you don't really want to be using the Liberator to clean up the Overlords. You instead want to kind of go a bit of a 1-2 punch. While you're attacking the front, you want the Liberator in the backfield to kind of hit the mineral line while he's distracted. But here we go, the Hellions morphing very close. There are no Banelings available. The Lings just going to try and go for the wraparound, looking for those juicy Marines. The high energy queen will fall as the Liberator is on top of the third base here. The Lings a little bit low in numbers. As the Spore Crawler trying to reposition here. He is on top of the mineral line. It looks like he will start to go down here. Overall, not getting a ton of damage on the drone line, but he is going to force a ton of extra units out on the defense, which is going to slow down the economy of Rogue just a little bit. Behind this, he's got his third base up and running. He's adding on those additional racks. Gets a couple of additional drones. How many have fallen so far? Not really worth it for the amount of effort he has put in. But like I said, now a Rogue has to be a little bit cautious about droning up. He's got to get out some additional Lings for the follow-up. He's got to kind of remake a couple of those queens, as he's doing right now. And he still has to worry about the Hellbats morphing outside his third base, as we see a pretty darn big run-by setting up before deciding to go on home. Actually, never mind. They're going to go for it. Does he have at home? He's got 7 Marines. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but that's not enough to deal with this many Lings. Oh, very big pick-off here for Rogue. Gonna get a lot of these Hellions. That is a lot of firepower just gone. And that is gonna leave this third base open to damage. Looks like Rogue not going to go for it, though. He wants to be a little bit secure, not to throw away any sort of lead that he has. He's got his Baneling Nest. He's gonna go for Burrow as well, which is pretty darn good. Now, BYUN's not dead by any stretch of the imagination. He's just kind of slowed down himself because losing all those Hellions mean his next attack is not going to be as powerful as he would like. So instead, just going to pick up here. Maybe drop right behind this rock wall, which would be pretty good. Get a snipe on the 5th. Or indeed just go straight for the main base. I think that would be good if he can get some damage there. So here we go. Marines unload, but they are going to get quickly surrounded here. Using about half a medevac full. We'll be able to get the rest of them. Taking a look at the upgrade tab. Yeah, Rogue is in control right now. He has full map control. He has full map presence. And he's going up to Hive as he feels secure to do so. Even just going to skip any sort of Spire play. That kind of tells me that more than likely we're going to see Lurkers as the follow-up here. You know what? It's going to come down to whether he can get to that point as BYUN, recognizing the situation, sees that there's no mutas, does decide to go for a pretty big attack here. Going straight for the 4th base. That is building. Rogue will sacrifice a lot of lings for not that much gain. The banelings, though, should be enough to force this away. Oh, the Widowmine just looking for an angle. Will get a couple of kills. But now BYUN is in multiple locations at once, just looking for any amount of damage that he can get. Tries to focus the fire down. The Banes won't be able to get too many of them. But that was a huge connection. We'll be able to get rid of the Overlord, but there is still vision. And as that Hive completes, supplies are actually relatively equal here. Taking a look at the units loss tab. BYUN's still doing a good job of being cost efficient, but I mean, they're lings. They're very expendable. And he can afford to throw them away like this. Just gotta be careful not to do it too often. One Widowmine will be able to burrow. That's going to deny mining for just a little bit of time on that base. As the medevac still just looking for another angle to drop the rest of them. BYUN still pushing the front, but Rogue very content to just keep his units close to home. Kind of daring BYUN to come forward. There we go. Instead of daring him to come forward, he's going to do it himself. A big run by here as BYUN getting a little bit trapped between the lings. So some good Bailey connections, but there are still so many Marines available here. He will lose his mineral line, and he's actually going to get Drailing Claws canceled or denied. Oh, at the nick of time. Oh my goodness here. So that was a big trade for Rogue. He doesn't have a ton of units still. Take a look at that units tab here. 60 lings, but not that many banelings available to him. He still has these units ready to go, however. And BYUN's still on 2-2. He does not have that +3 just yet, as Rogue does have Carapace on the way. A lot of these lings do get on top of the mineral lines here. Rogue is out for blood once again in this game. BYUN still has an army to fight with, but he's gonna have to make something happen very, very soon, or else he's gonna get picked apart, just like game number 1, 2, and 3. This is game number 3. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But, yes, still not mining off his 3rd base. He does have his 4th, which is nice, but he's not getting any additional gas. So, I mean, he's got Marauders, he's got Marines, but he doesn't have anything to deal with the Ultralisk tech that Rogue is going for. And again, kind of just daring BYUN to, or Rogue to, yeah, daring BYUN to drop him, daring BYUN to attack where he's not wanted. At this point, it's going to be very difficult to make these small drops work. So I think from here, BYUN kind of just needs to go for that big push. Look for the huge engagement and just try and crush Rogue all together as another big run by. Gonna get a couple of additional workers. Mine does not go off. So a lot of those lings will survive. So as soon as Rogue sees that BYUN is out on the map, as soon as he's on the edge of creep, he has to come all the way home to defend against these run-bys. This is the most annoying situation for a Terran player in the world. A Zerg who can counterattack efficiently. Basically what that has done is now Rogue is completely maxed out. He's gonna have full-on upgrades. I think Carapace did finish up. It did, so these Ultras are very, very tanky. And yeah, BYUN just really going to have to find a good angle to attack into. He's going to have to take an amazing trade, but his unit composition just isn't what it needs to be to do so. Mine's going to go off, slow this down a little bit. He will be able to clean that up, but the Ultras and the Planetary... Actually, looks like that won't do as much damage as I thought. Good little defense there. Only 4 Ultras out on the map right now, so that can be a little bit dangerous. But what am I saying? This is still 47 Banelings on the field. Oh, no. Rogue is going to run his units right into the main army. The Banelings getting a huge connection. But now the Ultras will have to fight on their own. So BYUN taking a relatively decent trade here. If he can get the Ultras, that would be fantastic. He gets one of them. And we'll get another kill on this base. So right now, BYUN kind of just staying defensive, staying in that spot where he's forcing Rogue to fight into him. In terms of bases, Rogue doesn't really have a huge advantage in that situation. They're actually relatively equal on that count. So BYUN is actually just keeping up with him in terms of that economy. The Liberators are inbound, though. So let's see if they can turn the tide, as once again, Rogue going to try and trade out here. Wouldn't mind. Not off of cooldown. He's going to attack from both angles. BYUN gets a little bit trapped. But that is a lot of Banelings going down to the Marauders. Looks like in the end, though, it is going to be enough. The Planetary Fortress will die. The question is, does he have enough to push forward? I think the answer is not really. As that is still a very scary Marauder count. Baneling's going to try and turn the tide up here. Another big engagement. BYUN trying to trade out some of these units. And will be able to, but not going to get too much for it. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of dead Ultras. But they do the job. Fighting underneath the Liberation Zone. BYUN is down. A lot of supply here. He is still bleeding out units. Funnily enough, he is still 30 army supply up. And honestly, he's trading relatively efficiently here. 6,000 income difference. I'm kind of take a look at that advantage here. You can kind of see the biggest problem for him is he's going to have to deal with a Rogue who can remax all the time. Corruptors in the sky going to shut a lot of this down. A huge Widowmine connection right there. But there are still plenty of Banelings available. The Corruptor is going to crush through the Liberators in the sky. But oh no, now Rogue is actually getting surrounded. His army got divided up. And while he does defend the base, the reinforcements starting to come in aren't really looking too scary. Rogue is broke. He can't really remake too many of these units. The transfuse is beautiful. but he needs some banelings, and he needs them soon. And this guy's going to start working on the Metavacs, but these Ultralisks are the linchpin of this army. There's not that many transfuse is left. Only one queen has energy for it. And now with all of these queens dead, BYUN is going to push his way through. He is almost equal on terms of that supply. Does he have enough? I think the answer is actually yes. You know, he's rebuilt his economy. He's still got his 4th base up. Even though it is not a planetary, it has been mining, and it's kind of his saving grace right now. As he's crushing through, the last of the Ultras does fall. One more on the way, but the Corruptors start to fall. And Rogue, he has fought a good fight. He is done a really good job, but at the end, BYUN, just a little bit too much. The reason I say that these two really are the most back and forth players that I've seen, while we have seen Rogue kind of take an edge, a big edge, versus his Terran opponents quite a bit of time. Back in the day, back in 2016, when BYUN was just absolutely unstoppable with his 3-Rax Reaper approach, when he pretty much killed the ladder for Zergs for a good few months, it was Rogue on Simulacrum who really showed him how it meant to be unstoppable and unbeatable, as he was just everywhere. His Lings destroyed the Reapers as they moved across the map. He whittled BYUN down to the point where he just couldn't fight anymore, and he absolutely decimated him then. And ever since then, these guys have been trading series like it's nobody's business. And looks like we're going to see a lot of the same here. Nothing too crazy, as BYUN is going to get the Reaper for a little bit of extra information. This CV going to make its way across the map, just kind of confirming that it is hatch first. And, you know, this one's a lot more straightforward of a map. You do have these couple of ramps up here, which are pretty good choke points where you can kind of siege up behind. So Rogue is going to have to crush through those rocks just to make sure. But, you know, he's going to really be able to take advantage of the fact that that rush distance isn't that long. As we do see that Reaper going to be coming in. It's a little bit of poking in. Not going to find too much. Back at home. It's just going to be Hellions once again. We're going to have to see how far he does decide to go with them. But he's not going to drop down the 3rd CC at this time. This is actually interesting. One of the big aspects that I find pretty strange about this map, but also pretty cool, is that you do have that additional high ground here, kind of like ascending the stairway to heaven almost, to get into your opponent's base. And also Ewok. Fun fact, a lot of different maps over the years have featured Ewoks as kind of a little Easter egg. So next time you're looking at a new map, or next time you're looking at what's coming onto the ladder, just kind of search around a little bit. Little nod to the Star Wars. But speaking about another star, the StarCrafts, we do have the Hellions raring to go. They do have the armory up and operational, so this is a much more straightforward Hellbat timing for BYUN. Let's see if he's going to be able to push through. As again, it's going to be a little bit difficult, as there is so much high ground that you have to contend with. Marines are loaded on up. The Hellions are holding back for a moment, kind of just trying to sell that this is a normal game. Behind this, he's going to be going for what looks to be a Banshee follow-up. I'm not a big fan of that. To be completely honest, because that is going to slow down any sort of follow-up attack, as we do see the Hellbats morph their way in just blocking the Lings from getting on top of the Marines. One of the Queens will go down. A good concave from Rogue trying to mitigate some of that damage. And that Hellbat number starting to get pretty thinned out, but so is the Queen count here. The Lings are going to start to get cleaned up. But at the end of the day, Rogue will hold. Still though, getting 30 Lings and 3 Queens was pretty darn decent, because that is going to mean that Rogue has to be a little bit more careful about how he kind of drones up behind this. Although, now that he knows that it's going to be cloaked, now that he knows that stim is going to be a little bit delayed, as well as that additional unit production, he might feel pretty okay in just kind of droning up behind it. That's kind of why I don't like the Banshee follow-up. Since that is such an aggressive attack, you really do need to follow it up with something else. Otherwise, you just fall really far behind. Does have his third base up and operational, building additional 3 racks here to bring his number up to about 5. Trying to catch up in that regard here, but the Hellions do get surrounded. A couple of them will go down. They do get 4 workers for their troubles as the Banshee going to make their way forward. There is no detection here. As I say that, there is an Overseer, so they're not going to be able to fight here. Transfuse going to save the Queen. And BYUN will get deflected once again. As these mutas start to come out, Rogue is going to be looking to once again kind of pull BYUN apart. Force him to stay defensive while he just absolutely explodes in terms of that macro. One Banshee dying. Rogue though, 69 workers does mean that he's pretty much saturated on all of his different bases. From here on out, it's just going to be pure unit, as we do see BYUN's next big attack going to be coming on through. The Changeling sees pretty much everything here. I don't think BYUN knows that there is a traitor in his midst. But as the mutas start to pop, you see Rogue just going to go for a pretty big counterattack. That is going to prompt BYUN to go straight home. He knows he can't really attack while losing this base. Gets a cancel on the factory. Yeah, this is just a really good timing from a Rogue, getting right on top of the economy. These SCVs are pretty much hating their jobs right now. 7 workers going to go down. The Lings are trapped, but as long as he can kind of keep them alive, keep them running around, keep them getting kills, the mutas in the third base can kind of just finish the job. $19 workers going down here, so BYUN is definitely going to be feeling the sting. He is not ahead in terms of army supply. He is not ahead in terms of normal supply. And honestly, he's just falling behind in almost every single regard. The only thing he's ahead of is getting his +2 upgrades. And even that's not really a good thing for him. Well, it's a good thing for him, but it's not enough. Banelings are rolling on forward, trying to get on top of those Widow Mines. They will get a little bit of friendly fire damage, and that's going to be enough for the Banes to get some really nice connections. So now BYUN kind of stuck between this rock and a hard place. He's got to attack in. He's got to do something here. But Rogue is set up on all sides, getting ready for the counterattack while also just preparing for the wraparound. Bermuda's feeling confident enough they can just go straight into the natural. They will get quite a few kills as another big run by going to be coming out here. BYUN trying to break down the rocks to open up another avenue of attack. But while this is going on, his economy, his army is in shambles. As we do see, here we go. What could be the final attack from BYUN as Rogue is just looking unstoppable here. The Banelings crushing through absolutely everything. The Widowmine going to save what's left of these Marines, but there's just nothing to reinforce them. So with the remax of Banelings, Rogue is going to just crush through. GG is called.